I'm a senior user experience researcher at in Google, New York, and I've been working here since 2008. And the research that I do focuses on several things. First, on Google's what we call conversational search, or Star Trek computer, as we call it, voice search. And also, I'm doing a lot of work around people's daily information needs. So we want to learn what people want to know, Google related or not, what do people want to know on a day-to-day basis? And then this tells us a lot about the opportunities that we have to help them with information. So this is what I've been doing at Google, and I've been doing research for I don't know, since 2000, 1999, something like that. This is what I do under different titles. And the book I published in 2012 is called "It's Our Research," and it focuses on a problem that people like me and people who practice user research, even as a part of a different job or a different role, a big problem that they have, that people do not want to do research to begin with. And if they do agree to do or sponsor research, they usually tend not to follow on the results. So if research recommends something, they usually go with their intuition rather than the research results. So that's a big problem for researchers and people who do research, and that's what the book is about. So first of all, I even say it more. I put a lot of emphasis on this. So I call it the first rule of user experience research, and the rule is don't listen to users. I know it sounds weird, but I explained that it's better to observe people's behavior rather than ask for their opinion about their behavior. So it's very different if you compare what people say about how they behave and how people actually behave. There's a very big gap there in most cases. So this is why I prefer not asking people what they need, what they want, would they use something, would they pay something, how much would you pay for something. Rather, I'm more interested in their current and uh, past behavior. And past is not 3 years ago, but recent past behavior. Their current behavior tells me a lot about what they need and gives me a lot of the answers to those questions that I just mentioned. So I prefer to observe that behavior rather than listen to what they have to say. So let me give an example of a study that was done many, many years ago that proves that point. So students were asked about their opinion about cheating. What do you think about cheating in tests? And they noted their opinion about that. And then the researchers came back and created some kind of an experiment a few weeks later, and they asked people to grade, the same people they interviewed, they asked them to grade their own tests. And there was close to zero correlation between what people thought about cheating and their actual behavior. So given the opportunity to cheat, people cheated, although they said they're, let's say, against cheating or something like that. And this is a study from 1937. So people tell me this is almost 100 years ago. People's behavior changed. So to that I say, no, human behavior does not change so often. Yes, compared to 10,000 years ago, some things have changed. But even today, you can see a lot of our behaviors are very similar to how we behaved 10,000 years ago. And when people argue about these old studies that I show, I tell them about a recent study that was. There was a story in the BBC a few months ago. It was very funny to see that. So it happened in the UK. A group of researchers decided to test that exactly. Attitude. They compared attitude, opinion, and people's behavior. So what they did is they waited outside of a public bathroom, and when people were coming out, they asked them, "Did you wash your hands after you finished with your business there?" And 99% of people who came out of the public bathroom said, yes, we washed our hands. But the researchers also put a camera inside that bathroom over the where you wash your hands, and they checked and saw that the same people they asked, only 32% of men and 64% of women actually wash their hands. So this is another example of a big gap between what people say they do and what they actually do. And this is something we should be aware of when we ask people about their needs with regard to a certain product or idea that we have, or a product that we develop. So a few things I want to say about that. So first of all, yes, different groups of people will, it's important to look at them because they will generate different results. So if you have, let's say you are a job search website, and obviously your audience is job seekers on one hand and employers on the other hand. These are two very different groups, and when you do any type of research for that site, you would need to test or evaluate, or whatever it is that you do it with those two groups. So if I'm going to say that you need 5 users for a certain study, in your case of the job seeking site, you need 10 users because you need 5 job seekers and 5 representative of employers. So that's the first point. The second point is that for usability testing, there are, very generally speaking, there are three types of research questions that we can answer. One is what people need, the second one is what people want, which is different than what they need, and the third one is can they use it. So let me start with the last one. Can they use it? We test that in what's called a usability test. You bring in a few people, you ask them to use the thing while thinking out loud, and you just shut up and watch what happens. Very easy to do, very simple. Anyone can do that. And you don't need more than 3, 4, 5, a big study is 8 people, 12 people. To that, when people have problems with that, I can go in different ways. One is argue and tell them, if you see a fold on the carpet and you see people trip over the fold and fall down, how many people do you need to see fall down to understand that something is wrong here and that you need to fix it? Probably not more than 3, probably not more than 1. But let's say 3, 4, you need to see 5 people fall down until you understand you really need to fix it. It's the same with usability testing. We're going to find, it's for finding the big problems, the low-hanging fruit. And you don't need many people. And a lot of people say to me that you can't apply statistics on 5 study participants. Well, I suggest they're going to do some reading. You can apply statistics on 2 participants. So you can do that. If you want to learn more about that, there are great books, Measuring the User Experience, Quantifying the User Experience. These are books that will better explain, this thing than I can do in a few minutes. You can do that. The other thing, the other approach to answering, that challenge is go along with people. And this is something a colleague of mine from Google Shanghai has taught me, and I've been using that, and it's just perfect. So he's a researcher there, and when his, product manager heard that he's going to use 5 participants in a study, they were absolutely, this was not acceptable to them. So he, instead of arguing, he turned to them and said, and asked, how many participants are you comfortable with? And they said that they're comfortable with 50 participants, which is a crazy number for a usability test. But he, didn't argue and said, okay, 50 participants, let's go with 50 participants for this usability test. And he told them, if you don't mind, we'll recruit them in groups of 5. So we'll recruit the first 5, we'll run the test. If you want to do 5 more, we're going to do 5 more, and so on and so forth, and until we're going to get to 50 participants. They said okay, and of course after 7 or 8 participants, they gave up and asked to stop, because this was just a repeat. They saw again and again the same problems. It was very clear what were the problems there, and they didn't need to see more people. So that's another way to argue with that. Now, this is usability testing. It's very easy to do. You don't need more than 3, 4, 5 people. And the other type of research is understanding what people need. When we want to understand what people need, we also don't use a lot of people. We can, I don't know, I'm usually going to between, let's say, 8 and a crazy big study is, I don't know, 64 participants, which is huge. It's huge. Because what we do there is we actually go and either observe participants in their own environment. It could be, depending on the product, it could be a home, office, or street, wherever it is. We join them for a couple of hours or a day or a week or I don't know, something like that. And you can understand why it takes a lot of time to do that with many people. And what we're getting is we might interview them, we might just observe them, we might do both. And from that, we understand a lot about what we can do to improve their lives in terms of a certain domain that we are interested in. So let's say we are thinking about it, we have an idea about I don't know, taking notes, just something that came across my mind. So we're going to join people throughout the day and observe each time they take notes and see what are the problems, what are the things they're doing, why. We're going to interview them and ask them why, and so on and so forth. So you don't need a lot of people to understand the trends. We're not trying to predict the future. We're not going to know for sure that for this problem, people will really want to solve it, and your product is going to be the next Facebook or whatever. We can't do that, but we can identify patterns, problems, and opportunities for developing products. So, in any case, I don't see why we need a lot of people. The third type of studies is what people want. For that, we need a lot of people. These are studies that you need a lot of people because you want to know what people want, so you want to launch something and see what they do with it. So usually these are A/B tests or some kind of analytics or log analysis that you're doing about traffic. So to see what people are attracted to and what they're interested in. So this will tell you what they want to do. So I understand where people are coming from when they see market research with thousands and sometimes more participants. I understand that these are studies that are after opinions, which is perfectly fine, but it's not user experience research. It's not for improving or creating products. It's about opinions. If you want to know if the colors that you're using in your product are nice, if people like them, do market research with thousands of people. If you want to know which product to develop or how to do it right, you're going to need a lot less participants. And if you have budget for a lot of participants, I would recommend that you do multiple studies with smaller groups of participants and improve your product or your design between them. The first one is not knowing what they're after. So people, to me, the biggest insult when I work with a team or with, I don't know, product managers, engineers, marketing people, and when I show them results of any kind of research, the biggest insult is when they tell me that it's interesting. I don't want to provide interesting results. I want them to be able to do something about it. And for them to be able to do something about it, the researcher, the person who does research, it doesn't have to be a researcher, but the person who does that needs to know what they're after. They need to very clearly define what are the questions that we're going to have answers to by the end of this study, of this research activity. So, and a lot of people don't do that. They just do a usability test and then write a long report with findings and recommendations, and it's not really clear what they wanted, why they tested that, what were the problems that they thought they would solve with that research, and so on and so forth. So I highly recommend to researchers or people who practice research to sit down with their teams and first identify what is it that they're after before they do anything else. So that's the first mistake. The second mistake is right after that. When you do know what you're after, the second mistake is using the wrong research method to answer those questions that you thought about. So I have two examples for that. People, and I've seen that happen so many times before. People ask for usability tests, and when I ask them why, they tell me that they want to know what people need. So a usability testing is not a good research method to understand what people need. You might get some, ideas about what people need, but this is not trustworthy for getting that answer, because a usability test is to understand if people can use that thing, and I call it it's for shaking the product. So the good things stay and the bad things fall down. So you understand what's working well, what's working not so well, and what you need to improve. It's for improving an existing product, an existing design. It's not necessarily a product, because you can also test with paper prototypes. So that's the first example. The second example is that people ask for to run a survey or send some kind of a questionnaire to learn about the usability of a product. So to that I say that's completely wrong, because surveys are after opinions and sometimes about usage. So how often do you use something or something like that. But it's definitely not about usability, because you don't want people's opinion. You want to observe their behavior. You want to watch them use the thing, and then you're going to learn about usability. If you're going to ask them about it, again, what people say about their behavior is very different than what they actually do. So that's a second mistake, using the wrong research method. And the third mistake is probably asking the wrong questions. So we see a lot, this is happening a lot with lean startups or startups that want to work lean. So we've come to a point that many startups now want or understand that they need to communicate with their customers or users or potential users. They understand that this is important, but they don't know how to do that. So they do that anyway, which is fine, but they then ask all the wrong questions. So, and I'll give you an example of something that is happening all the time with almost anyone. So the situation with a startup is usually that the founder experienced some kind of a problem. They identified a problem they had, and then they thought about an idea to solve that problem. And now they're working. They started a company, and they're working on solving that problem with technology, probably. And what happens is that they are looking for feedback, because they heard this is important to communicate with your customers, to develop your customers, to validate your assumptions, and so on and so forth. And then they go to the usual scenario is this: they go to their friends and family, or friends of friends, and if they have something to show, they show. If they don't have anything to show, they describe their idea, the problem and the idea, and then they ask for people's feedback. That's a wrong question. I think you know by now why. Because first of all, you're biasing them, their friends, their family. They don't want to hurt your feelings. They will tell you it's a great idea. Second of all, they're not necessarily your target audience. Usually, people who are close to you are like you, and you are not necessarily the user, although you've experienced that problem. Your assumption that your problem is a problem that everyone else has is not necessarily true. So when you ask for feedback from people who you know, you're going to get the wrong answers from the wrong people. And another problem with the question is that, again, you're asking about opinion. You're asking people to predict the future. They didn't use that. They didn't have that problem. And you're asking them for feedback. Would you use it? Would you pay for it? Would you buy it? Whatever. So they can't predict the future. Humans are very bad at predicting the future. The other way to do that is to, again, observe behavior. So first of all, I can say that for almost every heavy user experience method, there's a lean way to do it. And we don't have enough time to describe all of them, but I do have three tips that are probably principles about how to go about that. So first of all, my first tip is learn about humans. Because again, human behavior has not changed, for a very long time, and it's not going to change. Even though we have technology, it's not going to change so fast. I'm going to give it's not a stupid example, but it's kind of unrelated, but it's just to demonstrate how behavior doesn't change. So 10,000 years ago, when people, I don't know, were hunting and they saw suddenly I don't know, a tiger or a lion surprise them and threaten their lives, the immediate response is extensive heartbeats and excitement, and adrenaline is rushing. So today, let's say, God forbid, we're sitting in a situation at work where when our boss is calling us and is telling us that we're being laid off, we're fired. What happens that moment? Our heart starts beating. Why? There's no immediate danger. We respond in the same way as if a tiger or a lion is jumping on us, but there's no clear danger. But in our minds, we do think about that danger, because I'm not going to have work, I'm not going to have money, my family's not going to be able to eat. This is a threat. And we treat that threat in a very weird way that was true to how we dealt with threats 10,000 years ago. So this is just one example about how our behavior does not change much, and it has nothing to do with technology. So my first tip would be to learn about humans. And if you want to, that's a big statement, so let me make it very practical. Go find I'm going to recommend a book. Go find a book called 100 Things Every Designer Needs to Know About People. I don't know how much it costs, but it's not much. It's by Susan Weinschenk. And this book is based on research that was done throughout many, many years. And will tell you, topic by topic, how do people behave? What are the things that you should know about people when you design products? So my first tip is learn about human beings. The second one is, I call it obsess about the problem. So a lot of people, when I told the story earlier about the startup founder that had a problem and now he's focusing on solving it, that situation of identifying that there's a problem is usually happening in a very short period of time, and then immediately startup founders and companies move to obsessing about the solution. This is what we can do, this is what we're going to do, this is the technology that we're going to use, let's hire a lot of engineers, let's make it happen, let's work late, let's blah, 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 blah. I say that's fine, that's important, I have nothing against that. But first, you need to obsess about the problem. You need to perfectly understand the problem that you're trying to solve. So some people say to that, they say the iPhone didn't solve any problems. Maybe, but another way to look at that is what need are you looking to meet? So it doesn't have to be that you're solving a problem. It could be a need that you're meeting without any problem. And another thing that relates to that relates to obsessing about the problem is not only identifying the problem and learning everything you can about the problem that you're trying to solve, but also try and learn about how much people care about this problem. Because you can identify, and there are probably thousands of startup companies and product ideas that are solving a problem that is real, that is existing in the world, and that people have. But people don't care enough to want to solve it. So, I don't know, my again, stupid example is to-do lists. So some people have to-do lists. And most people, when they think about to-do lists, when you ask them, when you observe them, you see that they're having little notes, as I have prepared here. They put it on notes, they use a pen and a paper. And yet, there are probably dozens of digital products for to-do lists. Some are very well designed, some are very good, some are very bad, and they definitely meet a need. But apparently, not a lot of people use them. So people don't really care. They don't really. It's not a big problem to them that they need to write something on a piece of paper. It's not, the end of the world that they must replace that with a digital way. Some people do that, and that's fine. Probably the founders of the company that develops these applications or products, I'm sure they use it. They are, task freaks and to-do freaks. That's fine. But you need to find problems that you first understand, and then learn if if people even care about them. So that was my second tip. First, learn about humans. Second is obsess about the problem. So the third one directly relates to lean startup methodology, and it's recognizing your assumptions. So a lot of people, when you talk, in a workplace, and you talk about what the user wants, what the user needs, and things like that, a lot of people have tons of assumptions that they're using, and they're using them as if they were facts. So people don't want to do to-do lists on pen and paper. How do you know that? That's an assumption. You never tested that. You don't know that. You didn't check that. You feel that because this is how you think. Maybe the 10 people that surround you every day, they think the same way, so you have that perception. But it's an assumption. It's not a fact. And as soon as you recognize that the facts in your mind are assumptions, that you're recognizing your assumptions, you can actually go and do something about it. You need to validate or invalidate them. And I like the way, I don't know if you know Janice Frazier. She was the one of the founders of Adaptive Path in San Francisco, and she was their first CEO. And today she's leading a company called Luxor, LEAN UX Residency. So she draws a circle and with two steps that keep on going and repeating. It's called prove, improve, prove, improve, prove, improve. So you need to prove that your assumption is right or wrong, and then improve your product. So prove, improve, prove, improve. As soon as you recognize your assumptions, you can go ahead, get out of the building, and test them and validate or invalidate them. And that would be my third and last tip. The noticeability test is something that I tried, and it works well for me, at least, because I use eye trackers for some research questions, to answer some research questions. But I see a lot of people thinking that eye trackers can help you understand if people notice something on the screen. And if there's one thing that an eye tracker can't do, it's exactly that. It can't read people's minds. An eye tracker is a machine that understands the mechanics of the eyes and where they're looking at and what they're fixating on. It does not know what's in people's minds, and it has no idea whether they notice something or not. It can tell you if they look at something, but it doesn't tell you anything of whether, what's happening in the black box. Did they notice it? Because I've seen many times that people look at something but don't notice it. I ask them a question about it, and they don't know what I'm talking about. And the other way around, I've seen people, let's say, click on buttons without looking at them, which is something that, they notice it without even looking at it. So an eye tracker would not give you answers to that. But people still have this legitimate question: do people notice stuff? So let's say I'm a bank, and I have an online banking website for my customers, and the most important thing to a person who's logging into their online bank, they want to know their balance. So I, as the, let's say, designer or product manager of this online banking system, I'm interested to know whether people notice that balance quickly. That's a legitimate question, and which an eye tracker can't answer. So I developed the noticeability test. It's a very simple research technique for learning whether people notice key elements in your design. And what I usually do is it's during a usability test. So I let people use, let's say, the online banking system, and then after they complete the task that I gave them, I turn them away from the monitor, and I give them I ask them to reassemble the key screen. So I've printed in advance. I've printed the screen that I'm interested in, and cut the elements, cut all the elements, and then spread them around on the desk. And then I ask them to reassemble the page as they remember it. And I just shut up and watch what happens. And the interesting thing there, and sometimes I also remove some parts and ask them, I tell them, I had a lot of elements here, so some may have fallen. So here's a piece of paper and a pen and scissors, and if something is missing, just sketch it, draw it, write it down, and add it. And I also add some elements that weren't there from different pages. So what it gives me, except for the crystal clear answer to the question, do they notice the things I'm interested in? It also tells me about, I ask myself, did they put the key elements in place? Did they leave out what doesn't belong? Did they draw elements that weren't there? From there, from the reassembled page that they create, I can learn a lot about what they noticed. The other technique that I described, I called it an A/B usability test. And there's a difference between an A/B usability test and a standard A/B test. An A/B test, a regular A/B test, where you have your version of, let's say, a page, and then you create another version with one change in that version, and then you send traffic to both versions and see, track metrics. So it's great to understand what is happening in the site. So you're going to learn about, you're going to get all the analytics data about what happened, but you have no idea why, and you have no idea why for a very good reason, because you have no idea what people want to do when they access that page. So the A/B usability test solves this problem exactly. So it's a research technique. We're doing that online, not in person, and we're asking users to complete tasks while we collect all of these metrics behind the scenes. So the same way, you can have a version of your page, another version of your page, but then you ask, before they access that, you ask people, buy a book, whatever, I don't know, whatever it is that you can do with a site, buy a book. And then they go through that funnel of buying a book, and you're measuring everything in between. So you get the what happened, because you have all the metrics, but you also understand why, because you know the motivation, because you created it, because you gave them tasks. All right, so you learn so much about it. You learn about things to keep, opportunities for improvement. You can compare data. The basic data that you can compare is time to complete tasks, success, whether people are successful or not in completing the task, and how happy they are, because with these tools you can usually ask questions in addition to just giving people tasks. So it can also tell you, give you a clear answer to the question, who's better, which one's better. So you can compare your design to itself. So you can have, I don't know, 3 versions of your design and compare them. You can have your design over time. So my design today, my design in 2 months, my design in 4 months. You can see where it's going in terms of metrics. And you can compare yourself to your competition. So imagine yourself presenting data to people who make decisions in your company, presenting data about success, time to complete tasks, and satisfaction of using your product compared to your biggest competitor. If you're failing in something, that is something that people would want to do something about. 3 things that I can uh, share as probably the most important tips when you're having trouble persuading people to do research to begin with, or to act on research results. So the first one is developing empathy. And we, UX people and people who practice user experience research, we're very good at empathizing with our end users. We fight for our users, we advocate for them, we try to understand and empathize with them. Yet we are very, very bad at empathizing with the people we work with. So my first tip is understand what they need, what they want, what are their knowledge gaps. I usually ask people that I work with when they come to me with requests to research, or when I come to them asking them what research do you need. I ask them, what decisions are you trying to make that insights from users might help with? And then it frames it in a very clear way. So I'm empathizing with what they need. I'm not saying that in 100% of the cases what they need is really what they need, because sometimes they think they need something or they want something, but they don't really need it. They need something else. So there is a way you can do here with negotiation and discussion. But I try to understand where they're coming from first, and then it can go a long way in getting their buy-in for research. Because if, in their mind, if I'm helping them to make a decision, an important decision that can make them a hero, I'm helping them. And there's no reason why they would, not want to do research. So that's probably the most important tip that I can give. The second tip that is, almost as important is make research theirs as much as it is yours. And this is why I call the book It's Our Research. Because we used to, as researchers, and it's not only researchers, people who do that. You can be an engineer who's doing research. We used to, holding the cards close to our chest, not sharing the secret sauce. I'm going to do that. This is my thing. And that's not working. And I found that if people feel that it's their research as much as you feel it's yours, it can give you a lot of leeway in terms of doing research, getting sponsorship for research, and the commitment people give to act on results. Because if they're involved in deciding what questions we're going to answer, if they're involved in deciding who are going to be the participants that are going to come here, if they're even involved in moderating the sessions, in asking questions, in actively collecting data, if they are involved in the analysis and presentation to the rest of the team, it's theirs as much as it is yours, and it's extremely helpful. The third tip is very practical. It's about reports. I think I've talked about that in the talk that you attended. So I hate writing and reading reports. I truly believe that nobody comes to work in the morning saying, yes, I'm going to read a report today. And for every research that I do, I try to find richer ways of reporting on the findings. And it's easy if people participate. So if my team is there helping me with research or being a part of the team, the research team, we don't need a report. Everyone's experienced the study, interacted with participants. Everyone was there. So we don't really need a report. Yes, we definitely need to sit down together and think about what we're going to do. What is it that we found, and what is it that we're going to do? That's true. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we need a long, colorful report that will sit in someone's drawer. So a couple of examples of richer ways of reporting findings. It could be video clips. If you're taking videos of the interviews or whatever it is that you're doing with users, ask permission and video these things while promising that you're not going to share that with the world, but only with the relevant team members. Extremely effective. They need to be very short, 2 minutes each, but it's extremely effective. A lot more, eyeballs than on a report. The second thing, especially for those studies that involve going outside, observing people, interviewing people, um, I called it a research expo. We closed a room for a day. We collected a lot of information. We created posters, based on what we found in the study. We presented pictures that we took. We had a rolling presentations for the posters that we didn't have time to create, and we had video stations with some clips from the interviews that we held. So people came in and heard and watched these interviews, and we collected a lot of artifacts and we put them on the table. And we, the research team, were there. And then we invited our broader team. This was held at Google, so it involved a lot of many hundreds of people as the team. We invited them to come to that room and experience research rather than reading about it in a report. And this has caught like fire at Google. A lot of people are now doing research expos, and they're doing that because it works. Because people don't just remember the expo; they truly remember what we found because they were there. They experienced that in a different way, in a more richer way than just reading a boring report about it. Yeah, so these are just two simple examples of how you can get better persuasion. So just to sum it up, my three let's call it user experience research buy-in tips are developing empathy towards stakeholders, making research theirs as much as it is yours, and not writing reports.